Welcome to the Foreword podcast. I'm Casey.
And I'm Pastor Ethan. Here we have real Christ-centered conversations that go beyond our regular scheduled services.
From lighthearted fun to the burdens of everyday life, we're diving into what matters most together.
So let's get into it.
This is the Foreword podcast.
First Church, how's it going? It's Pastor Ethan here.
With Casey.
And special guest,
Anastasia. Nice to see you guys.
Anastasia.
The Anastasia.
The Anastasia, the one and only.
Uh-oh.
I don't know if we've probably talked about her before on the
sure we
podcast.
have.
If I had to guess.
All good things.
Yeah, probably
I hope
all
so.
good things. We tend to not talk about anybody on the podcast if it's not a good thing. But
Well,
we
that's good to
also we also try and make a habit of not talking about people regardless.
Yeah.
So I mean that's
Unless it's us.
yeah. The reason we're on this morning, if you read the title of this, is we're going to do a little camp recap. I was able to do chapels and worship 2 of the nights. One of the nights I was there for chapel and got to pray with the kids and things. And then Justin Sam, him and his wife did the praise and worship and he preached. But Anastasia was there for the whole thing. So we're going to get her perspective on what camp was like. Maybe her experience, maybe why you should send your kid to camp. Who knows what the episode's going to unfold, because as Casey and I were telling Anastasia, a lot of times we just pray and then we dive into it and we don't have any questions prepared, and you might say, well, that's ill-advised, but we try to just go by the leading of the Holy Spirit most of the time, unless it is some structured thing, like that we want to hit bullet points. But we're not exactly sure exactly what we'll talk about, but at the same time, we know that it's going to be about camp. And Anastasia, you want to tell us anything about yourself? Maybe
Well,
how long you've been going to this church, anything like that?
Been going here for almost 17 years.
Oh, wow.
It seems like a long time.
Yeah, I remember when you came.
The kids were really, really little when I came. And I've been teaching for about 12 years.
Okay.
Sunday school here for the primary age, which has been it is one of the best parts of my faith in this church is being with the kids. They're easy to talk to, but they learn and absorb so much, and to watch them absorb everything in the information is just wonderful. But
And you've probably seen some kind of come through and age out.
oh
A
yeah,
little bit,
we have a couple. My own kids, especially Mary. She said, "Okay, it's now your turn," and
You're it.
so they went all the way through my class, and I've watched a few of them age out.
That's awesome.
And I got another one, 2 of them aging out this year. So
And I think our teachers mean a lot, as kids too, because I still remember who I had for Sunday school, and we had a bigger Sunday school program back in the day. And so I remember we went through several different classes, and I still remember most of those, I guess, Bible accounts that you learn about the different people in the Bible. I remember Mary was the one that probably taught,
that's
I learned
who I
most
took
of that
over
from
for.
her.
Was Mary.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that people that are willing to teach children, it takes a special type of person. I truly believe that, because of their willingness to have a little bit more patience sometimes, their willingness to be able to maybe explain things further, that sort of thing, where, for the most part, if you're teaching adults, you're going to have questions, of course. You might have things that come up in Bible study that you weren't prepared for. But I think it seems like it's hard to prepare for a class of children, because you just don't know what's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
Because kids can be doing this thing one second, and the next thing they could just be doing something totally different. And I think what a blessing that we have people like Anastasia and Susan, right? Susan also helps teach our kids. So they're a huge blessing to our church. I think one of the things that we are prayerful and hopeful for is that the Lord will send us more families with kids.
Amen.
Because we just redid our kids group, and it seems like we've had less kids we just redid our kids room, and it seems like we've had less kids than ever now that the room's nearly ready.
Yeah.
So the thing that I always think about, though, is that we felt like the Lord wanted us to redo the room. And if the Lord didn't want us to redo the room, then he probably wasn't going to be sending us any more children. And I feel like since he asked us to, you got to be faithful to say, even though if we don't have that many children, we'll prepare it for a place that hopefully the Lord will fill it. I think that's part of faith, is just going, hey, Lord, if you ask, it doesn't really make any sense with the number of kids that we have at the moment, but we believe if we build it, like Field of Dreams. You guys ever seen Field of Dreams?
I have.
I love that movie. If you build it, they will come. And it didn't make any sense to anybody else, but he built the baseball field and the players came and they played.
Yeah.
So
isn't that part of faith anyway? Like the idea that Christ has said that he's built a place for us, and so we have hope in that he's prepared. So in the same way, we're doing the same thing. We've built a place with the hope that he'll send kids.
Absolutely.
That's kind of how it was with the start of camp, because there was no camp for years, and then we just had faith that the kids would come, and they did.
Yeah.
We had 26 campers and
awesome.
24 staff, but it was so intimate.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of one-on-one, so you could talk to the kids. And the one thing that I found that was really awesome is there was no cliques. Everybody was together.
Yeah.
That was what I thought was just totally... They dropped everything, and it was all about each other and not about what they looked like or who was hanging around who. It was all about God and their faith, and that was what it really... It showed me a whole new sign of the way kids act and behave today. Was just absolutely amazing, because you don't see that very often. Normally you see them in a phone, or that is not how it was at camp. It was just everybody was with each other and for each other. So
as an outsider, I think even at the adult level, I saw when we decided to take part in this camp before any of the other decisions were made. I think we saw in the church, we decided we wanted to be a part of that camp. And so we didn't really know any of the other churches that were involved in it, but everybody kind of went all in on the idea of having this church camp. And I don't see that there was any cliques in the same way. Well, this church is doing this and this church is doing that. So even on a big level, I think all the churches came together and were willing to set any differences that any other church might have aside, and we'll do what we need to do, and we'll do what we need to do, and kind of came together. And that's echoed apparently in how it went with the kids also.
it was...
Yeah.
I can't even explain the relationships that not only they made, but who I made with all the other churches. And
I think, to go off what Casey was saying, before camp even started, and a little bit of what you were saying, Anastasia, we didn't have any expectations for how many kids we'd have. We didn't have any expectations for even where it was going to be. We decided we were going to have a church camp without having a location, without having a church camp name, without having insurance. But we just had a leading from the Lord to say, you need to get this started and back up and going again. And of course, we had kids asking, especially at Greenwood, because they had gone to camp for so many years. And then there was a 4-year lull, I think, or 3-year lull or whatever, where there was no camp.
too long.
Too long. And so we had kids asking. We had people who had volunteered at camp every year going, hey, we need to get this back going. The Lord's laid this on my heart. We need to get reestablished. And so, really, it all kind of happened at once. It seemed like from April to June, everything just happened in those.
Bam.
Yeah.
There's bam.
And like Anastasia said, 20, I didn't realize it had that many staff. 24 staff, 26 kids. You go, well, that's not a huge camp. But the thing, my biggest thing was every time anybody talked about camp, I thought, if we have 26 kids now and all of them have a good time at camp, if they invite one person...
That's all it takes.
You immediately have a 50 camp, a 50 kid camp. And next year, if everybody does it, then you got 100 kids. And, that camp has had 120 to 130 kids, I think, before at one time. And is fully capable of doing. How many of the cabins
we
did
used
you use?
3 cabins for the kids.
Out of the 11 that's there or
I had
whatever.
12 in my cabin. There was 5 junior high girls and 9 boys.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's
I had
awesome.
the little girls.
Yeah.
And that was educational. But it was so good
I bet.
to watch them at night with the
I bet it
devotionals.
Yeah.
Because that was a very important part before they went to bed. And that's where I learned a lot.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know how to do devotionals. So I got to learn from a camper that's been going to camp since 1954. And so she was the one. We called her Camp Grandma.
Yeah.
And we had Sister Sarah and myself in the cabin. So
Yeah.
she was our camp, and that was Joni, and she was our camp grandma, and she
Yeah.
taught us a lot and taught me a lot how to work with the children in the devotional time and get them settled down and to truly take it all in.
Yeah.
And not just, gossip at the end of the night or just say your prayers and go to bed, but it was truly a devotional.
Yeah. One thing I love about Joni is she was dedicated to that camp as a youth. And then when she got her opportunity to help be a part of camp, she was a part of camp. And like Anastasia said, she's been a part of camp for years and years and years and years. And, there is a thing that we all do where it's like, well, this generation is so much different and that generation is so much different. But really at its base, all kids need the same things, right? And so I think Joni knows that. It's like, just because these kids now are more technologically involved doesn't mean that, settling them down for bedtime and doing the devotion and thing, that the same stuff that, maybe she's tried over the last 30 years to get campers, maybe it's a variation from year to year, but she knows what to try.
She does.
And whatever sticks is what you go with, And I think that's one of the beautiful things about the fact that we had old, and I don't mean like by age, but I mean like people who had been at that camp for a long time.
Very experienced.
And then you had people was this your first church camp, like ever being a part of a church camp?
So I went to church camp in Michigan.
Yeah.
I was a Sunbeam, which a lot of people don't know what that is. It's kind of like a Brownies, Girl Scouts, but it's on the Christian based with Salvation Army.
Okay.
And I was a Sunbeam for years. And I went to their camp, and then I went to Portage Lake Covenant Bible Camp for my whole, up until 96 was my last year. So I had experience as a camper, never as a camp staff.
Yeah.
So I had a whole new experience.
So you knew what camp was like, but not from the other side.
Correct.
Right. So that's kind of cool, right? Because I think there were a couple other people that were kind of the same way. And then you had people that volunteered. I don't know what Richard's experience is. I know he volunteers at the Rock here in town. But I don't know if he'd ever done, to that scale for that amount of time. It might be cool to have him on at some point to see his perspective of it all.
And he was there from the time that they woke up until the time they went to bed. So
yeah, he couldn't stay overnight because he has a job. And I think one of the reasons why we want to even have this podcast is just to prove to people that this is important, that it absolutely is important. I know I saw from a lot of people kind of like, well, we don't know what this is going to be. And kind of like, maybe they wanted to be a part of it this year, but they were, and that happens. Yeah. I kind of tend to be that way. Like,
I didn't know what it was going to be. I was so scared, but
yeah. Well, you get that for me, I always want to see something played out first. So as for if I was not the pastor and I was somebody that was trying to decide whether I want to volunteer for camp or not, I would want to see a year out first, and then hopefully next year, because we're going to have more campers, we're going to need more staff. And so part of the reason why I think we wanted to have this, or maybe selfishly the reason I wanted to have it, is just to show that this is important to the kids, and it's important that we do it. And there's a number of reasons it's important, and I think, maybe I'm just speaking for Anastasia here, but I think she would say that she would rather have been at camp than not been at camp this week.
Oh, for sure.
Is that true? Yeah.
Spiritually, for me, it was absolutely amazing. So.
That's the thing that adults don't understand, is that you think it's all about the kids. That's what I think a lot of adults think. It's all about the kids. But you experience yourself. I told Casey after the first night, this is probably top 5 thing I've ever been a part of. I've been in situations where the Spirit was moving as on the camper side, so to speak, but never I shouldn't say never, but only a few times was I a part of being on a prayer team or on a worship team or something where we got to see the response to the Holy Spirit that we got.
And you've seen it Monday night.
Yes.
Sunday night.
Sunday night.
It was just when you were preaching. And you preached Sunday night, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my! They kept telling me the last day of camp was going to be so emotional.
I was so surprised.
The first day of camp was and they go, "This is like the last day of camp." But these kids were just. Yeah. It was all about prayer.
And we really had that each night. Kids praying with kids. It's like a floodgate. The first one thing I loved about being able to do the first night was you never know what to expect on the first night. Number one, because kids had just gotten to camp, 12 that day?
Yeah.
So at noon, they had, gotten dropped off, settled in, checked in, and you don't know what to expect. The first chapel, really what you expect is a bunch of kids that are probably
scared,
are nervous, don't really know what to do. You don't really know how they're
embarrassed to maybe show your faith the way that you really
exactly.
want to, but
and that's hopefully I don't chase this rabbit too much, but that's another thing that people don't think about is you've got kids on all different walks of their faith with Christ. Like some have been faithful to Christ for 10 years. Some may not, I don't know. Some of them kids may not even been saved. I don't know. Maybe this is their, the leading of the Holy Spirit there to be like, hey, I think you should go to camp and, those type of conversations. But the thing that I loved about the first night was, again, you don't know what to expect, and there is some commotion, like, probably getting the sermon rolling. We had some kids that were like, hey, I don't know where to turn to. And, I had to help a couple of them. And there's camp staff there helping kids trying to get to 1 Corinthians 15 is what I preached out of. And, once everybody got their Bibles turned, there was a little commotion there. And then it was like maybe 10 minutes into the sermon, it was just pure engagement, right? And what I thought was, in hindsight, I was thinking, why was that first night so special when generally you don't get that response? And I think it was the diligence that was done from noon to 8:40, right? Of the rest of the camp pointing to the fact that, we're here to worship the Lord.
it wasn't all about fun and games. And I was the one in charge of the fun and games, but they had classroom time twice.
Yeah.
You got chapel twice and classroom time twice. And in one day, which is, that's why we're there. So,
yeah.
And I know that the teachers, Jonia was another one of them, and they were spot on. And I didn't get to see the whole classroom time because that was where I finally had to get ready for my next game or activity. But my land, the kids really, they absorbed it.
You have to have activities, right?
You do. That's fun.
That's something to get the kids where they can do something fun and sort of in a way to get some of their energy out, make sure that, because kids need to play, they need to run, they need to have activities. And then I think there was a good balance between activities and time when we're talking about Jesus, because it's not a summer camp. It's a Bible camp.
It's a Bible camp.
And,
bingo.
And that's the difference. Is this is not just about making sure your kids are watched for a week, or it's not about them, just exercising. It's fully about equipping children to know who Jesus is, the leading of the Holy Spirit first and foremost, and then activities are great, right? All that stuff is sprinkled in, and it's great to hear the activity person saying, hey, it wasn't about me. Like, it wasn't about
Not
activities. Though I know Anastasia, she was fully prepared for all of her activities.
Oh.
I know the people that were doing the lessons were fully prepared for the lessons that they were going to give. The praise and worship and the messages, the praise and worship was definitely a little bit more on the fly than probably the whole rest of camp, to be completely honest with you. But
the kids loved it.
The profound thing to me about, again, to go back to the first night, is that, and I think this is how good God is. So we always do an altar call, right? You preach, do worship, do an altar call. It was just me and Josh there the first night. We had some scheduling mix-ups. They kind of, because of the low amount of campers, they put all of the kids in one chapel where they were going to do, which is great to plan that way first. And then they decided, well, we're just going to group all the kids into one chapel because we just don't have enough of certain grades to do two separate chapels.
That's why I think it worked out so well.
Yeah.
Because everybody was together.
And the thing that was amazing was you didn't see, like, this kid's 15. Why would I ever engage with,
the
this
9-year-old?
little kid? Why do I care about what he thinks? But instead, like Anastasia was saying, is they felt like a group, a unified group.
That's exactly what it was.
Yeah. And the thing that also was so profound to me is that you were able to keep their attention, because all that we talk about kids these days is they have low attention spans. You can't get them to do anything other than sit on their phones. I didn't see a phone. Well, maybe that's by
They
design.
were allowed to have phones.
Were they?
They were. I didn't realize that because I told my campers
Yeah.
no, but you didn't see anybody.
I didn't see a phone. I didn't see anybody sitting there going, hey, this is the worst experience of my life. I didn't see any impatience. Impatience is what I just said. I didn't see any impatience by any of the kids. And then, so we do the altar call, and one of the camp staff comes up for prayer. And that's what I love.
That's what broke me the first time.
Is the idea that the Holy Spirit goes, hey, these kids aren't going to come unless somebody shows some example. And I don't know if the camp, the staff person knew that that's what she was doing, but she was just coming up genuinely for prayer. So we pray for her. All these kids come up to pray for her at the same time. And then after they see that, like, hey, praying for somebody is not that bad, the next kid just steps in. And I start praying for them, and the next kid just steps in, and I start praying for them, and the next kid. And it was just, and Josh, thank God for Josh. Josh has been been playing the guitar for a super long time, has done praise and worship in the past, still continues does praise and worship today. He's in a band. Thank God for him, because he was able to play, just softly in the background for us for the entire time that was necessary for the kids to get prayed for. And the Bible says that God inhabits our praise. So that, there's something about music being played. There's something about music being sang. And there's something about praise that the Holy Spirit just loves to be a part of when there's music there. And we've talked about that a little bit before. We had Braden on to talk about praise and worship. And it was just a great experience, and I didn't expect to pray for that many kids on the first night. I didn't expect for nearly all of them to be at the altar on the first night.
That's what shocked me.
I
'Cause
didn't
normally when you
expect
do an
them to
altar
know-
call, you get one or two people.
Yeah.
And it was
it
almost
wasn't.
the whole camp.
And the reason I say it was a top 5 experience for me is because every one of those kids came up with, and it wasn't like, well, I've been, kind of kicking around, looking down, shuffling their feet. Well, I've kind of been struggling with this. No, they came up, I want to rededicate my life to the Lord. Or I have this condition wrong with me, and I want to get prayed for it. I had one boy come up and say, I'm expecting a healing. That's what he told me. Another little girl, like super small, she comes up, I need a healing touch from the Lord. And I'm like, like the vocabulary that they had for what they needed, I go, this is amazing.
I wasn't expecting that part of camp. That's where, when I went to camp, you didn't see many of that.
Yeah.
You seen one or two people, and that was like awesome to even get one, but to get all of those campers, it was.
Isn't that like what happens with worship, though? Like, I think a lot of things happen with worship. First is that there's no pride, because in order to actually worship, in order to like turn your eyes to Jesus, you have to like pull aside everything else, right, that is hindering you. So you can't be looking at yourself.
Amen.
You can't be looking at your neighbor. You can't be like, if you're going to actually like truly worship like you're supposed to be doing, or like you should be doing, your eyes are already locked in ahead. And I think the other thing is unity, because you're all like doing your own thing, but you're all together in that. And I think you've preached several messages that the Lord's given you on unity, like being lockstep in together. And I think you don't think that when you're doing it like in the moment, because all of a sudden to turn your eyes on Jesus again, it's like as soon as you take your focus on anything else and put it right on the Lord, then all that stuff, like you said, the Holy Spirit just dwells in that. It's just like everything else falls away. So I can only imagine, what that's like.
And focus for a child's mind doesn't last very long, but it went on, and because we came back to chapel late, and
first chapel got done at 10:20. We started at 8:40, so for an hour and a half, we had I'll say nearly full engagement by the kids for that entire hour and a half. I mean, just each night. I think the second night was probably 2 hours. The third night was probably about the same as that, and you had your little commotions here and there when transitioning between praise and worship, but aside from that, I mean, it was such a great experience. And the thing that I stressed to every one of those kids when I got up afterwards is that they did the things that adults don't do. Adults sit in their seat and they worry about the thing that's going on with them, and there's an altar call given, and they think about everybody's eyes being on them. They think about, well, I'm going up prepared for heartburn, but they're going to think I'm going up prepared because I'm an alcoholic or because I beat my wife this week. That's like the worst things going on in your mind that you think. But just as Casey said, like proper worship to the Lord requires you to put off all your baggage and just say, hey, I'm going to be fully in. And in the same way, going to the altar requires the same thing. I'm going to fix my eyes on Jesus. I'm going up here to get the thing that I'm going to be prayed for. And I don't care what Bobby thinks. I don't care what Jim, I don't care about what any of these people think, because I'm just here to meet with the Lord. Like that is, and that should be the response of every adult that sits in their seat going, well, what are people going to think about me? And the Bible continues to say, there's an actual verse that says, do we seek to please God or do we seek to please man? That's the question you have to ask yourself. Like, is it pleasing to the Lord that he knows he has the power to heal me? If I walk down to the altar to ask for that healing, that God has the power to heal, or do I sit in my seat and just wait and do nothing and stay stagnant? And I think just the response that we saw each night of kids just going, you know what? I think the first night set a tone for the whole rest of camp. I think the atmospheres were a little bit different each night. Second night seemed to be more about like just full on
praise and worship,
dancing, singing, praising. Justin, he brings a high energy. They sang a lot of high energy songs, and that
His
was
children were amazing.
Yeah.
I got her doing that drumming. Beautiful.
His oldest daughter plays the cajon, which is it's a box drum. Basically, you sit on top of it and you play different parts of the face of the drum to make different sounds, and it that brought a whole energy to camp because you had this percussion, right? And kids were just dancing in a circle, singing, praising. And it was amazing. It truly was.
It's like a pure example of what happens when it's the Holy Spirit that's leading the worship and not just like a performative thing. I mean, I think we've all been in situations as an adults where it's like, this just feels like it's a show. Like I'm attending a concert, which you wouldn't want or expect it at a Bible camp. But I mean, I've been in those situations where it's like, oh, this just feels like I'm being sang to, and when the Holy Spirit is involved, obviously, like this, that's not the case. And there's a remarkable difference. And I think if you've never experienced that ever in your life, it might be hard to actually know what that is like, if you've never had that. But obviously, when you have had it, it's so different. You can tell, like you feel it. It's different.
Well, a Christian concert or a church service by design is not for your own entertainment. Mm-hmm. I think that's the problem, is that I think churches have become about entertainment, and that's not what this camp was about either. It's not about entertainment. It's about like you could have sat in your seat and said, I want to hear this message and I want to be sang to. And if that's what you want, then fine. That's what you're going to get out of it. Yeah. But the church by design, camp by design, is to give proper worship to the Lord and to show kids that like it's okay for us to do that. Like it's actually what we're going to do for an eternity. That's what people don't realize, is that we're going to be camp is heaven in a very small vacuum, basically, because that's what we're going to do in heaven. Like there's verses that tell us we're going to sing praises to the Lord. We're going to sing in a heavenly choir. There's going to be a lot of praising and worshiping. And if that's the if that's the part of life or church that you don't like, you're going to be really disappointed when you get to heaven, because people aren't going to be singing to you. They're going to be singing to the one who's worthy of all praise. So, and I think that by design, the way that any good Christian concert, any good camp, any church service should be is, we're not going to put limits on God, and we're going to here to worship Him, not to be entertained. Yeah. And that was the great thing about camp. One thing I loved is our administrator, our camp administrator, Richard. He set this precedent first and foremost that, hey, there is a soft out for the end of chapel, which says, hey, it's there only because we have to have a schedule, but we don't care when chapel ends, because it's night chapel is one of the most important parts of camp. So there is a time on there. He told me this face to face myself. There's a time on there feel free to ignore the time. It's just there so that we, generally speaking, go, hey, kids are going to be in bed by this time. But if they're not, it's not a big.
It's no different than a Sunday morning I mean, I think we all know that I put the bulletin together and the order of worship and everything, and that's there as a guide.
Yeah.
But I've told Dave before, as he's up there leading it, and if you feel led to change the song, if you feel led to mark that out, if you feel led to skip that, whatever, like, because I think the very first time, the very first time something got out of order, I remember him being like, oh, sorry, I got that out of order. And I'm like, hey, like, I pray about this before I put it together, and I put in there, you know, what I feel the Lord is calling me to put in there. And if you get up there and all of a sudden he yanks something away, like, don't look at me. You know, you run with it. I don't care if it goes to noon.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
and I think that's a problem, and it's interesting because I Casey and I would probably do a podcast on this, just the idea of like, church shouldn't really have like a, hey, we got to be out at this time, because it's not about the person. It's not about where you have to go after church, right? Yeah. If you need to leave early, fine. I have to leave early all of the time, because I have another church to go to until the end of this month. Yeah. I know Gary's had to leave because, hey, you got a prior engagement, and we get that, right? We understand that, but at the same time, you know, if we would have said, hey, it's
10:30, time to wrap it up, guys.
Yeah, like. And that wouldn't have worked. It wouldn't have worked because kids would have been like, what do you mean? Like, we're still praying. We're still singing. We're still, like, I'm not done sitting in the presence of God at the moment. Like, and I think that was the amazing thing, was the whole camp was, hey, we're going to have certain times for certain things, but the most important thing is that the Lord is honored and that the kids get what they need out of this. So, you know, we're not going to put, and I can't believe you guys still had devotional after how long
we did. We still had devotional.
Because there was still a wake up time the next day,
6 a.m.
and
you could hear me singing and clapping in my hands.
Yeah.
It has to make a difference though with like the spirit led leaders that are there, because I always say, like, little people are people, whether, you know. That always kind of annoys me when I hear people talk about, like, they separate the kids from the adults on things in life, because, you know, little kids, they have hurts, they have all kinds of things, just like adults do. They just process them differently, you know, and sometimes process them better. But like in the camp case, like if you're not sure, like this is your first experience at camp, and you're like, I've never been up to the altar before, and you see people you respect, like, oh, there's Pastor Ethan, oh, there's Anastasia, and they're going up and they're pouring their hearts out. Like, I can do that too, and then they just go with it.
See, and that's exactly what it was. They weren't scared about what the next person was going to think about them for whatever reason they needed prayer for, or just to pray for somebody else.
Yeah. It just sets a precedent, you know. It just rips the Band-Aid off in a sense. Like, this is okay because these other people, you know. And after that, the Holy Spirit just...
Yeah. Well, it was said that staff would come pray for you, but it wasn't just staff. It was the kids coming and praying for the kids. And that was absolutely amazing.
I want to say something real quick, and then I got a question for Anastasia specifically, because she's on, so we want to hear more from her for sure. For sure. She was also boots on the ground for the entire camp, so I can only speak to the Praise and Worship Chapel, which was a profound part, and I'm sure Anastasia will continue to speak on that. But for me, one of the things that again, adults don't realize is that these kids minister to you. So I had a little boy come up. He asked for prayer for a certain ailment that he's had, you know, his entire youth, I believe. Mm-hmm. And I've been having issues with my neck, head, feeling like I'm walking on a boat most of the time, like these, it's not dizzy, it's unsteady kind of feelings. And that's been happening for nearly a year now, not to mention a lot of the stomach issues I had from having a bacterial infection, and that still seems to be lingering. Oh, you know, just ailments that I'm like, Lord, I'm praying, I'm asking you, you know, you can, I know you can heal me. But he came up, and, you know, one of the things that, you know, he asked for, you know, hey, I've got this condition, I'd like to be healed. And we prayed for him, but not before I reminded him. And this is, I think, where he ministered to me, because the Lord told me to tell him, I'm going to pray for you that the Lord heals you. And we all believe that he can, absolutely, because he's powerful to do so. I said, but if he doesn't choose to heal you tonight, what I want you to know is that he hasn't forgotten about you. right? Because we're expecting a healing, and that's what I'm going to pray for you for. But if he doesn't do it tonight, it's not because he forgot about you. I said it may just be that, and I don't think we tend to think of ailments as a blessing, but I told him, I said, it may just be that the Lord has a plan for your life with this, right?
Yeah.
And that ministered to me because I've been praying for healing for a year and a half, about 2 years now, for different things, and now a conglomeration of those things. And I go, well, the Lord hasn't forgotten about me. You know, he hasn't healed me because he forgot I existed. He hasn't healed, he hasn't not healed me, I guess you say, because he forgot I existed. He hasn't not healed me because he's not powerful to do so. He hasn't not healed me because he doesn't want me to be whole. It's just that for this season of my life, for whatever reason, there's a purpose for it. And that was so profound to me to be able to tell that young man. And I don't think he was healed that night. I really don't. And I don't think he was healed the next night or the night after that. He probably still hasn't been healed, just to be completely honest with you. But again, it doesn't, and I hope that sticks in his mind, is just because I still have this doesn't mean God forgot that I exist. Or that, because we're all promised, and I know it's feels like a cop-out to say, when we pass from this world on into eternity, we're all promised that healing. Like, that healing's coming to anybody who has an ailment, who's a Christian. It may just be that you have this thing for your entire life, and then you get healed when you get to go to heaven. And the understanding about that is that we don't know why God chooses to heal some people of the exact same thing that we struggle with, but he does. Yeah. And maybe for that person, they needed to be healed for that to be part of their testimony. And maybe for this person, part of their testimony is, hey, I served the Lord through my entire life and never wavered from him, in spite of the fact that I had this thing going on with me. Yeah. And that is a testimony in of itself. Because what the devil tries to whisper to us is that, well, the Lord clearly doesn't care about you, or you wouldn't be sick.
Yeah, you're less than, somehow less valuable to the Lord. Yeah.
I just had this conversation last night with somebody. In the book of Job, it's clear that the devil can inflict sickness on people, right? There's just no way around it. It's good theology says that the devil has authority over this earth, right? And so he can inflict sickness on people because he did it to Job. We know that for sure. But Job, the devil's big thing with God is to have this conversation at the beginning of the book of Job. The devil was selfish, so selfish that he thought, I don't want to worship God. I want to be God. And so he gets kicked out of heaven. And his whole thing is that there's no way that these people can't be the exact way as me. Like, there's no way they really want to worship God. They want to worship themselves just like I wanted to. And his whole thing in the book of Job was, God, I can prove to you that Job is just like me, that he doesn't actually care about you. He doesn't want a relationship with you, that if you weren't protecting him and you hadn't blessed him with all these things, he would deny you as quick as possible. And so God says, fine, do it. And Job loses everything and then is inflicted with sores all over his body. And the Bible says he's taking a broken pot and scraping the scabs on his sores. And his biggest thing is that, I wish I had it open in front of me. Job's biggest thing is that he's like, I'm not going to deny my maker, right? I'm going to remain faithful to God. Now, all throughout Job, he's questioning, like, why has this happened to me?
We all do.
Yeah, but at the same time, his wife tells him, curse God and die. And Job says, I'm not going to curse God. Like, Job, throughout the book of Job, is just trying to understand why this thing happened to him. And it completely denounces the notion that if our life was perfect, that's the only reason we would serve God. That's what the devil told God. Job's life's perfect. If you allow me to make it imperfect, he'll turn from you. And that's not what Job did. He proved to the devil that humans have a logical conscience and the ability to choose between whether we're going to serve God or whether we're going to be like the devil and serve ourselves. And I think every time that we, in spite of sickness, in spite of ailment, in spite of what's going on, every time that we continue to serve God through those things, you imagine how mad that just makes the devil, because he goes, why aren't you denying God like I did? You have this ailment that you've had for 40 years and you somehow continue to serve him?
Yeah.
It's counter to what the devil thinks about humans, that he can get all of them to say, well, I don't like God because God hasn't done anything for me, right?
Yeah.
Instead we go, if sending Christ to this earth was the only thing God did for us, and we were sick and afflicted and always poor and broke, we would still say that was more than what we deserved for him to do.
Yeah.
And that was one thing that, it was a long way of saying that I hope that this young man remembers that he might have this ailment for the rest of his life, but he's not the devil, right? He's a child of God. So he can continue to serve the Lord regardless of his ailment.
I got one thing to say real quick, and then I'll be quiet.
Yeah, you're fine.
So I was thinking about just like the idea that the devil can inflict things, and this isn't exactly the same thing, but a few days ago I was out walking at Shakamak because I'd kind of been in a funk the whole week, and Friday morning, I didn't have to work, so I was kind of in a mood, and I thought, I'm just going to get out because a lot of times I'll go walk, and that's kind of when I can shut everything out and talk to the Lord. And there's this one spot there that it's off the beaten track, it's hard to get to, and I'm like, that's a place that I really like to go and pray. And so it's not what I had set out to do, to be honest. I was walking, and then it occurred to me while I was out walking, like, oh, I'm getting kind of close. It's like about a mile away from where I was at. I'm like, I'm just going to take a detour. And so I'd been talking to the Lord on the road, and I audibly had said, like, hey, my favorite place where it's quiet is coming up. I'm going to go there, and we can talk there. And literally, I get into the woods, and I get attacked by this, like, swarm of flies. And I'm like, I skipped it. It's like a 1.5 mile long trail, and I'm literally running through the woods. I cannot get these bugs away from me. And I'm like, what is happening? I skipped the place that I know I need to go. And it's that way all the way through until I get off that trail, back onto the road, and they still follow me for a little bit. And I'm literally running. I probably look crazy, like have my arm flailing.
Because nobody can see the flies.
No one can see me. But I'm like, I've never had this happen to me ever. And I had audibly said, like, hey, we're going to go to this place where I know it's quiet, and I truly believed once I got out there. I was frustrated at first. I'm like, what is going on with this? Like, this is supposed to be like relaxing. This is supposed to be like where we were going to have a good talk because I'm in a mood, and I need some guidance. But that reminded me of that is, I think I audibly had said, like, this is where we're going to go and this is what I'm going to do. And the devil said, time, and he said, bet. No, you're not. And bet. And chased me out of there. And I thought, this is crazy. And anyone else that would hear that might think that was the craziest thing they'd heard. But I fully believed that, and it took me some time when I got back to the truck to be like, I'm so frustrated with this, And then it's like, no, that's what he wanted. He wanted me to be frustrated. He wanted me to skip out on that time. And so I had to spend the rest of the drive home like, okay, we'll do it here.
This would probably challenge what people think that they know, but if the devil can make a house fall over on all of Job's children and kill them, then he can certainly make flies chase you.
Yeah.
Like, I think that...
And we're talking like they were like in my shirt and landing in my hair, and I'm like, I've been walking out here for 2 years and this has never happened to me, And I'm like, I think that's
trying to detour you from where you need to be.
Yeah.
Anastasia, my question for you, sort of one of the biggest questions I was thinking about this morning was, have you in your adult life ever experienced anything like that?
Not at all.
Like what you experienced this week? No.
Not at all.
Yeah.
It was actually one of the best weeks of my life, but to watch those kids go through what they went through in their everyday life, because you hear the stories, they tell you they're kids. They're going to tell you just about everything that happened that was bad to them. It's never always the good. It's always what's wrong with me. And then to see that, and that's gone. It was all about pure happiness after that. But it was to watch them, like you said, reconfirm their faith. That to me, I have never seen a child do that. I myself have done it, but it's to watch somebody else really, really confirm their faith.
Yeah.
There's nothing like it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the most beautiful thing in the world, because that's what you pray about. You
Yeah.
always, you pray for somebody else to see Jesus' light and to actually watch it happen.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just one person. But I mean, this was real. This wasn't just, I'm going to say this. It was real, because then you watched them throughout the rest of the week continue to do what God, I mean, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
But it changed my life.
I think what that's, well, and it changes, and the thing is that my hope is that even the adults, that nothing dissuades them, I think is the word, like pulls them away from, well, hey, I saw this at camp. Why can't that happen at church? You know, that was what I'm thinking. As I'm sitting there, I'm like, hey, this is camp. These are children. Adults are supposed to know more about God than what children do. Why is this not happening every week at church?
It's actually sad to think about it that way.
Yeah.
Now that you put it, I'm like, oh, that's horrible.
Did you think about that at all when you're witnessing, this?
In a way.
Yeah.
But not until you just really put, I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa. But yeah.
And I think that's the bigger question for the churches is why is one of the best church services you've ever been in, you had to go hang out with a bunch of kids for that to be one of the best weeks of your life.
Isn't that crazy? I've
know?
been to lots of places and seen a lot of things.
Yeah.
But no, that was it for me.
Yeah.
I can speak to that, and that I feel that, and this isn't to be negative, but I think there's an assumption made that, like you said, as an adult, you should know more. You should have encountered that at some point. But again, It's not the age. It's like the experience. And if you've only been, on milk your whole life, when are you ever going to even know what that is? I mean, I'm 31 years old, and it's only been in recent years that I've even had a taste of what that's like. So if you've gone, it doesn't matter if you're 14 years old, if you're 6 years old, or if you're 95 years old, if you've only been in the same spot your entire life, then how are you even expected to know? And so you're going to have maybe somebody in church that's in their 60s that has that childlike experience that you had at camp, and it's going to hit them the same as that 6-year-old, but maybe they've just never had the opportunity or ever had that, that feeling. Maybe they didn't ever see somebody else come up and say, you know what, I'm going to make that choice too. And then the gate opens for them, where the Spirit lands on them.
Yeah.
Maybe they've just never had the Spirit land on them in that way because the opportunity has never fully, been there, or where they've, understood it.
Yeah, the Bible warns us of getting caught in religious rituals, and we always apply that to like what the Jews were doing in the New Testament. And you go, can't you create a religious ritual out of anything? Mm-hmm. Like the fact that a person can say, I can set my crock pot for 2 hours from now because I know we're going to be out of church. Mm-hmm. At camp, you couldn't have set a crock pot because you had no clue. Because you were so willing to say, Lord, whatever you want, we're available and open to do it. And I think one of the biggest problems is that the church in general has become more about the person than it has about God, and like the comfort of a person than it is about God. And I'm excited to see things change here because I never get to be part of the worship service here, if you will, or the altar call or any of that because of the fact that I preach at another church, of course. Anybody that's listened to this for long enough knows that. But, coming up after I get back from maternity leave, like all of that changes. Mm-hmm. And I get to be here from the time we open the door. Well, not the time we open the doors because Casey gets here.
Let's not kid ourselves.
I'll say I get to be here from 9, which is most of the time when I get here, until we close the doors and everybody goes home. And I'm interested to see what that's going to do to our service. And it's not because of me. Not because of me at all. I just mean because of the experiences like Anastasia and I have had. Like the thing that's been laid on my heart recently is like, why do we do the things that we do? Mm-hmm. Because most of the time why we do the things we do is far more important than what we're actually doing. The why behind it is the reason. So if we are saying, hey, we got to rush through this song, or hey, we need to get through this offering, or hey, we need to get through this communion, because we got to get these people moving through here. Why are we thinking that? Mm-hmm. Is it because we feel like everybody's not going to stay here till a certain time if it goes to, mm-hmm. and that's just as much for me as anybody, and just as much for the leaders here. What if Dave said, hey, this song's not on here, but we're going to go ahead and sing another song? Would
Mm-hmm.
people say,
I hope not.
Yeah, I hope not
That's
either.
like the best part of.
But we could have done 40 songs at camp, and those
Enjoying
kids
each
would have
other.
fallen asleep worshiping. That's how it felt. If that's what we would have done, they would have been right along there with it.
And I see what you're saying also with the service, you have to leave and everything, because like you said, it's not about you, and I understand that. But at the same time, you've also been called to be the pastor, and as the pastor, you're the shepherd, right?
Yeah.
Shepherding your flock. And I think that people kind of look towards that, and so it's like if they need prayer, if they're gonna come up for that invitation, like they're looking to you to be there to shepherd them. And so I think that will change things, because they'll be like, I'm coming up because my pastor is going to be praying for me. I think that will change things.
Yeah. Not that I don't have great sheepdog, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's the responsibility gets put on them when I have to go. But like you said, absolutely. The sheep's not looking for the sheepdog. The sheep's looking for the shepherd. And so I think it's going to be great. By design, it just has to have been that way. But I think it's going to be great to basically starting about mid-July to be here all the time and just see how the Lord's going to grow this place, and the kids he's going to send us and the families he's going to send us. I've talked to plenty of people, and I'm going to hold them to it, that have said, hey, if you had a place for my kids so I could drop them off at the beginning of service, and that's something we're working on, so that, because they're pre-K and they've never sat in a classroom, they don't have the attention span to do that. They said we would come, and I'm going to hold them to it. As soon as we have that availability, I'm going to say, hey, come 9:00, drop your kid off, come listen, come be a part of this.
We've been working hard to get that done. So, don't want to drag it out. Sooner the better,
I tell you, for me, one of the things that's been on my heart is it's to the time for people to put Christ and make Christ a serious, most important thing in their life is now, right? Mm-hmm. If we see anything about the world and just the direct attack against Christianity, now's the time to be serious about it. And I really, really, really have felt the leading of the Holy Spirit to hey, once some of the smoke clears on all this other stuff, it's time for you to buckle down. And I think we'll see that in the church as well. I really hope so. Mm-hmm. Anastasia, both of these questions may sound like a big question that really has a lot going into it, but why do you think a camper should come to camp?
Well,
to this camp specifically, right? Not just to go to a summer camp, but
to open up and not be afraid to worship in front of others I've seen that a lot. And the real world here, we're all worried about bills, health, sicknesses, but for a kid to actually unwind, put everything aside and go to camp and to learn about each other, to learn not only how God works in each other's lives, but to see it work, to grow in their faith. It starts young. It really does. You can't, it's really hard you got to act like a child. I think what the problem with the adults is we're not children ourselves. We're too scared to be that child in ourselves. But these kids are they're not worried about anything else. And to go to camp, to meet new people, mm-hmm. and to just really be not scared to open up your heart and your mind. I think that is so important. And to be away from your parents for a minute, to where they're not, what'd you do, ask a million questions. They're actually able to do the things. Oh, it's so hard to put into words, because there's so many different reasons why I do believe that kids need to go to camp. But I have to put myself and pretend to be a kid for a minute, because for me, I wanted to act like a kid. I wanted to be free and not worried about what everybody else was worried about, because I have a little anxiety about talking to people that I know more than talking to people that I don't know. So for me, it's when I'm in a church setting where I've been around people for the last 15 years, I get nervous to say things and to be open up. But when you're around and you're a kid, and I think that's what made it easy for me, is it's really easy for me to like pretend not pretend I'm my kid, but the kid in me come out. But to watch these other kids see other kids. So we had 17-year-olds with 9-year-olds friends. They were, you don't have that when you're here and you're separated into grades or into classes. It wasn't like that. So for this camp in general, it was a lot of one-on-one, which is very, very important because kids don't get that anymore. They don't have that, let's talk to somebody about my faith. I know one of our camps, what we call our camp sister, she was part of the staff. She talked more one-on-one with the kids. She wasn't an adult she was an adult, but wasn't that big of an adult figure to where they weren't scared. Yeah. Kids to not go to camp, you don't really have that. You have your mom and dad, which they're asking you a million questions anyway, and you always hold back because it's mom and dad. What are they going to think about if I say this, or am I going to get in trouble for saying this? But these kids needed to go to camp to open their minds and to let Jesus, and to believe what Jesus is all around us, regardless of what we are wearing, what we have. Just to see the other kids engage is very, very important. I watched. For myself, to go to camp, I met a lot of new people. I learned how not only they worship, but how they open up to other people. The classes the kids need that. The kids don't have that stability anymore. You get a half hour lucky every week. Yeah. And you really don't. And by the time the teacher settles everybody down, you get a craft or a lesson, there's not much learning going on, or to see the other kids use their spiritual tools that they have. And I think that was a really good focus, was a lot of kids had different spiritual tools that they had and they brought into camp that they shared with other kids and said, okay, well, this is how we worship at our church, but look at this way. That I seen because there was 5 different kinds of churches there. It wasn't just Baptist there. There was some Pentecostal that showed up, and we were independent. So there was different ways that these kids learned, and they were learning from each other, which you can't get every day in Sunday school. No. You can't get it at school, because at school you don't know what these kids are saying. Yeah.
And you
what
feel
they're
like
bringing in.
You're just a number. Like there's 30 kids in a class at most schools. You know, you're just one of 30.
But they're not sharing the tools that, helps them learn more about Jesus, or to share that love with others. And that's where, when I seen these kids go to camp, at first it was like, okay, we're getting into our cabin, everybody's got to meet everybody. But then the spiritual part came out. And that is the whole reason why you send them to camp, is to see that shine. Yeah. And I watched that not only shine, but grow in these kids. Yeah. Some of them never, I do know I had a girl in my cabin who didn't go to church. She just went occasionally with her grandparents. And to watch her journal what the preachers were saying. And I don't think a lot of them realized that. I mean, did you see kids writing and stuff? Yeah. They were journaling.
Yeah, I saw some kids taking notes for sure.
So they were journaling, and I didn't realize that. I mean, I don't journal during the sermons. So I was learning, and I was watching Michaela, which she gave me permission to use her name, and she was journaling, and I'm watching her. So you learn a lot from watching others, and it's not just the adults. So learning from adults that are sitting there in the pew, because that's what we do. We're on a repeat motion. We go to church, we sit in our pew, we get our Bibles out, we look at the bulletin, we follow the rule, the way of the bulletin, and then you go home. Yeah, yeah. With these kids, it was not like that. They were going into camp completely, didn't know what was going to happen, because there wasn't camp for a while. So they were so open-minded, and then to watch the other kids bring out their Bibles. I mean, because we had them reading at night, but they were, to not see somebody do that all the time and to watch, that's what I think kids really, really needed, is to be a kid again with another kid watching the spiritual part of it, because that it doesn't happen every day at home.
Well, because truly speaking, I mean, we all ought to be reading our word on a Also, I won't, I won't strap you to some some religious thing and say every day we got to be open our Bibles. For some people, definitely, but I think the idea that I'll just say getting in the Word every day is important for a healthy relationship with God, right? And that's just something that you kind of create this environment at camp. I want to talk about the journaling thing, so if I forget to talk about that, please remind me. But one of the things that you get at camp is these kids get to flex their spiritual muscles. And I don't mean show offy. I mean if you sit for too long, at my age, my knees start to hurt, right? When you get up and start moving, you're like, oh, man, I haven't exercised this in a long time. Well, kids, especially in the summer, you can only do so much sitting in your room playing video games. You can only do so much, going to hang out with your friends. You can only do so much riding your bike, But none of those things really ever involve you being very spiritual or showing your faith in any sort of way. So for 3 or 4 days, these kids got to flex their spiritual muscles,
and
exercise.
It wasn't just at chapel. This was the whole time.
Yeah.
Because even when you lined up for flag, you better come up with, if you want to eat first in line, you had to come up with a really good, that we were doing parables of the Bible. I mean, you had to come up, which I had 12 girls, and I had a little girl from Greenwood, and she brought this up, and she goes, I think we need to do this. And we were the 12 disciples, and they all knew their names. We weren't in order, but it was lucky we were there at the flagpole at 7:30. But we were the 12 disciples. But each day, we had the Tower of Babylon. There was just so many different things, the crucifixion, that these kids had to come up with because they wanted to eat. This wasn't just, okay, we're going to stand to the flagpole, do the flag, which I also learned the Christian flag prayer, which I didn't know that. Yeah. Or the Bible. So I learned a lot. So I know if I learned a lot at 43, these kids were just, exorbitant like a sponge.
On the journaling thing, I had a lady that I was preaching at this church. It was actually where I kind of first started preaching. I was doing praise and worship there. But when I would preach it, and she did this with every pastor, don't think that's something special about me, but she would always be out there writing, and I never thought she was ignoring me. I just always thought well, what, people do that, but what are they doing with the notes, afterwards? And I never thought anything of it because some people journal during the word and some people don't. So after I got called away to ministry and started having my own church and stuff, she passed away in that span of time, probably about a year ago. And I went back to that church for her. They had a celebration of life there. And I was talking to her husband, and he goes, she always loved to hear you speak. And, she would always writing things down and meditating on them and stuff. And he just nonchalantly goes, she always took the message from Wednesday night. She would write it down. And then until Sunday, she would do her own Bible study at home on that sermon. From Wednesday to Saturday, that was her study material. So she didn't need a plan to follow or a devotional to follow, because her thought was, hey, I'm going to take what the pastor said on Wednesday night and I'm going to meditate it on Thursday and Friday and Saturday so that it almost soaks into me. And then Sunday, she would do the same thing. She'd listen to the word. She would write down what the pastor was saying, and she would meditate on those things till Wednesday, and then do that over and over again. And I go, is that what she was really doing with all? He said, yeah, she didn't write them down just to write them down. That's she was looking back at them and studying over those things. And I go, just so profound to me.
So when Michaela opened up her Bible and showed me, because she got a journaling Bible, which I didn't even know they make, but it was filled.
Yeah, it gives you a bit on the side so you can write stuff.
Filled, and that's not even including what was in her notebook. And I go, what are you doing? And she explained to me that she goes, well, I have to go back just in case I forgot something. And then what if I needed to question that, or maybe got a little bit more information on that, so I fully understand what it really meant, not just listen. And because sometimes it's in one ear and out the other. You're half asleep, but they were fully absorbing everything that was being said. But I was watching these girls, and I'm looking at their notes, and I'm like, they're actually writing down what you're saying. Maybe they need to, read it again later that night. I don't know what, but I was amazed because first I thought they were drawing. I'm like, no, we need to pay attention. They weren't drawing. They were, they were
Taking
journaling.
notes.
And I'm like, that's amazing because you don't even see adults do that anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, but these kids were truly absorbing everything that they were taking in, which you don't see. I mean, you just don't. This is the real world. I mean, when you're out in the streets, you don't see that stuff.
Yeah.
When you're, you take the kids to school, there's how many of them actually are absorbing everything that you're giving the information. But these kids were not only absorbing it, but making sure they had it for later.
Well, and the great thing is that they take that home with them.
They do.
The hope is that, they don't just open it the first week, and then by the end of the summer, they've forgotten that it ever exists. I hope that's not the case. For some of them, we can't be ignorant to the fact that for some of them, they have a really good 3 days, 4 days, and then they go back to a life that they just aren't going to exercise their faith again, or that is not. Unfortunately, I think one of the most difficult thing about camp is that that kids will go back to a place where people are not feeding into them. Right? That this is a one-off situation for their life. You hope that the Lord does as much with them for those 3 days as possible, or 4 days or 5 days as possible, depending on how long the camp gets to be. And you hope that the next time, next year comes around, and that's not the next time they ever hear anything like this. The hope is that they are given opportunities to exercise their faith, to show their faith. I had a boy come up, and he wants to come to church more. And so we prayed that his parents would just bring him to church more, and that would be most important. Well, his biggest thing was, I'm struggling with my relationship with Jesus because my parents won't bring me to church. And I'm like, I told him, I said, you can have church in your room. Like, you don't have to wait on your parents to do anything, when it pertains to your relationship with Jesus, because it's your relationship with Jesus, it's not theirs.
My parents never went to church with me. My mom was a Catholic and my dad was a Baptist, and I went to a Covenant church because that's the lady down the road always took me. Even when I moved away 30 minutes, she still drove in her car every Sunday. But I wouldn't be where I was today if it wasn't for that.
Yeah.
My parents weren't there spilling at me all the time.
Yeah.
So I had to absorb from others or what I did learn. And I wouldn't be here for today if it wasn't for other people, showing me. And it wasn't just telling me. It's a lot of show. Like, you have to
lead by example.
Let everybody know how you're a Christian by leading by example, not just a show or saying, "Oh yeah, I'm a Christian." You have to show it, and we've seen that all week long. I mean, it amazed me how there's teenagers. When they get in that teenage phase, they're little kids. It was, oh my gosh, there's so many stories I could tell you about these older children taking on the younger children, the first-time campers, because we had that tornado warning. Mm-hmm. And there was one kid with claw marks in his hand, and it was at chapel, and he bled, and the little girl she gripped right onto his arm. I found out later she was in the Sullivan tornadoes. Mm. And when she found out there was a warning that night, it terrified her. And
so she just grabs onto this kid.
She grabbed onto this kid, and he goes, "Oh, okay," and he sat with her during the whole chapel, all the way up until she finally went to bed. And he showed me his scabs the next day, and he goes, "It was so worth it because she felt safe." And they didn't know each other; they didn't go to the same school. Yeah, they just, and he's going to be 18 in a couple months. And, but he just sat there. Well, she had a death grip, but she wasn't letting go. And he tried, but and she did let go for a minute. But as soon as she realized, but that was her armor right there, at the time, that was where she felt safe. Yeah. But it was everybody was for everybody else. And you don't see that anymore. Yeah. Even in the Sunday school classes, you don't normally see everybody, there's always, oh, I'm going to work with this person, or there was none of it. Was wonderful.
Do you have any profound stories from the kids' perspective that you? I know you, and some of them you might just want to keep for yourself. I don't know, but and you've mentioned a couple. But is there anything that you just witnessed aside from maybe even just chapel in general that you were like, I'm going to remember that for forever.
I am. We did skits. And, normally you don't, the kids are just saying skits, but there was this one skit and it really explained, and they were talking about why to go to church, and these kids, they actually stopped because they were all chatting, everybody had their turn and they're scuffing their feet, and I'm like, shh, they can't hear you because we didn't have mics. And as soon as they started talking about the skit about why they go to church, all these kids were just sitting there and they stopped and they started listening, and I was like, wow. It was another child talking about God to another child. That was amazing. But to watch just be reaffirmed, or the kids working together as a team, because we did teams.
Yeah.
And I didn't know who these children were. I separated them the way I thought. I had names and ages, and boy and girl, and I tried being completely even because they had to add the kids together, but I wanted teamwork. And I didn't want to be, older kids against the younger, and it was complete teamwork. It was a lot of fun, but I learned a lot just by watching, because we're adults and we don't always do teamwork the way we're supposed to. Mm-hmm. We don't do a lot of the things we are supposed to, but to watch these kids do exactly what God intended them to be. This was a Bible camp, and it was Bible camp. Yeah. And there was some, I feel like, oh my gosh, I know more adults that need to be here. And I think there need to be adult camps. I really do. Because it opens you up in a spiritual way that you wouldn't normally open up sitting in a pew.
I think that leads me. Casey, do you have anything you want to say? We haven't heard from you in a minute.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good for now.
Casey is a blessing to our podcast because sometimes, since I kind of lead it, I just always ask the questions and stuff. But what Casey gets to do is in his brain, he gets to kind of coagulate all those things. Mm-hmm. And then eventually he'll go, hey, and then, hey, this groups everything together. So, if you don't hear from Casey for a while, it's not because he's not engaged whatsoever. If you don't watch the podcast, Casey's not snoozing over here.
No, I'm mulling it over.
He is actively listening, which is something that we all could work on for sure. Mm-hmm. Active listening means you're listening, engaged, and probably thinking about what the next, thing that you might say is. But so that leads me to my next question. This is really the last question I have, but doesn't mean we have to stop talking. But why should an adult volunteer for camp? We talked about why a kid should come to camp, and we've probably touched on why the adults should be there a little bit. But why do you think that next year you hope other people from our church are there? I guess is probably a good way to put it.
I can only go on how I feel.
Yeah.
It changed my life. It really changed my life. You do things so verbatim and you forget why you do those things. Mm-hmm. Or you just go throughout your life. But to sit down and actually concentrate and everything to watch the kids grow in their faith is like the most beautiful thing you could ever experience, because those are our future. And if we don't have that, but to sit there and watch them and the teamwork of everybody around you, and it's just stuff you don't get every day. I mean, I volunteered at VBS, and VBS is a wonderful, wonderful thing, but this was on a whole nother level. I mean, it changed my life for me. But I have never, as an adult, seen such faith in people. I mean, I go to church with a lot of people, and they have a lot of faith. But these are young souls that are absorbing. And I think I absorbed more off of them than they probably did me. So for me, it changed my life. I think it made me way stronger in my faith than I ever was before. I watched another staff member reaffirm her faith, and she was upset one night because we went lights out on her and she wasn't done reading the Bible, and she goes, but I wasn't done yet. And she didn't normally do that at home. And to watch her completely go further in her faith, you can't get, I mean, you just have to go to camp to experience it. You just can't, I can't tell you, and then you feel that way because you have to see it and you have to feel it for yourself, and you have to just, it's a very beautiful thing. And I think it changes not only your life, but the kids' life that's our future. And we want our church filled with kids. We keep saying we want it filled with kids, but if we're not going to go out there and be the kid ourselves and let them absorb off of us and watch them learn, because I think we need to learn more from the kids. I really do, because we're all an adult world that is actually very, very sad world, but these kids don't see it that way. They're not looking at what bills they have to pay next. So they don't have that worry, but to just let it all go and to let Jesus in your heart and just Jesus guide the way. Jesus was guiding everything that they did. And not only everything they did, but everything we did. Because my phone wasn't, I didn't worry about who's calling me.
Isn't that nice?
What bill needed to be paid. I mean, I know Gary was probably at home worried about things, but to me, it was, I could have stayed there for a lot longer, and I was,
thank God for Gary holding it down.
I'm telling you, because my whole mind was on watching these kids grow, and and it was like I said, from the time you woke up with my clapping and singing, and because rising and shining and giving God the glory was why we were there, and they had to endure my non-carrying tunes all week, but
hey, you know what? I'm gonna throw in a Shane reference,
okay?
Because I have to. I haven't spoken in a while, but singing is for everyone, and they talk about that on the devotional every day.
I guess they've developed a Sing for Family.
They do. They have. If you download Sing Plus, they have all these different devotionals. But they say, because I'm gonna try to quote this and not mess it up for our listeners, but there's a verse in Colossians 3:16 that says, "Let the word of Christ dwell richly in you, teaching and admonishing one another in all wisdom, singing songs, hymns, and spiritual songs with gratefulness to God in your hearts." And so that singing is for everyone. So it doesn't matter if you can't. I can't sing.
Oh, I couldn't sing.
No matter how many times my grandma tells me I can sing, I can't sing.
Especially not like your grandma.
Especially not like my grandma.
Not at all.
But so it doesn't matter.
But just to watch their faith. I think we all need to step back, be a kid again, and go remember what it's like to when you first because you guys are all probably children when you first let Jesus in your heart. But do you really remember how you felt? Yeah. The feeling, it just, to watch these kids do it over and over and over again all week. And it wasn't just at chapel. It was, though everything that they did, it was, Jesus was with them. And you didn't think about anything else but.
Yeah.
I always think of there's a woman that isn't able to come to church anymore because she's at home. She can't make it to church. But I remember one time that she's one of the people that's probably one of the most influential in my entire life, as far as like when I look at her, I even when I'm up front, like tomorrow I have to be up front. And when I look out and I'll see that spot where she's not sitting, I think of her. And think of how she shaped my faith. But she told me one time, she pulled me aside, and I don't know how we even got on the topic, but she showed me where at the rail that she gave her life to Christ as a little girl. And I think of that all the time. And I never forget that. And it's like, I can see like how her life has played out. And even now at home, I can only imagine. I used to think, we all do, but I used to think, man, she has a direct line of the Lord. Just something about her is so authentically it's baked into her, and we could all be that way, Well,
I think that comes with how important Christ is to you is what your life, like what your spiritual life looks like, is dependent on how important Christ is. There's a direct correlation there, right? Yeah. I think, Anastasia, what I hear you saying seems like a lot of the reasons why staff should come to camp is the same reason why.
Absolutely.
Because you're also going to spend a week where you're going to exercise your spiritual muscles. Like you're going to exercise your faith. You don't, just as a kid, you also, of course you're going to have things you're worried about at home. But for 3 or 4 days or however long camp gets to be, you are so involved in the camp aspect and in helping to mold these children and helping to, grow their faith, that your faith is going to be grown because you're fixed on the goal is, to worship God and to make
that was the
Him
only
known.
goal.
Yeah, I
didn't have to worry about for 4 days. I didn't worry. That right there was because I wasn't worried about anything else going around me because it's not important. And to feel that I think we all need to step back and realize that none of that's important at all. And you really got to feel that because you were thrown right in there, and there was no time to sit there and think about anything else because it was all about the kids.
Yeah.
And to maybe, sit down and be a kid yourself for a little bit and engage with them and their level, which I like their level. So I think that made it really easy for me and to be on their level a little bit, but just to let everything go and not worried about, okay, what's this guy going to think about me because I'm a Jesus freak,
Yeah.
But you didn't have to worry about that because we all were. But I was absorbing, not only from the kids, I was absorbing everybody else's faith like a sponge. I was even all the way from the kitchen staff to what they were doing, and they worked hard. They worked really hard just to be able to feed us. But the little things that they did for us, I mean, you just.
I know you mentioned. I know you mentioned the meals were
Oh,
excellent,
incredible. The only thing I did miss out on was the eclairs, the camp eclairs. Which have you had one?
No.
I'm sure you probably
But
heard
I do
about
love an
them.
eclair. Yes.
So it was a Greenwood lady that makes them, and I guess it's a camp tradition. And I missed out on it, but I had a child in need at that time, so I got to miss out on the eclairs. But it was the food was
hopefully next year.
Right? Oh, well, there will be a next year.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that you've come on the podcast. I've wanted you to be on the podcast for a while. You know that, and to get your thoughts on things. But I appreciate you coming on because I hope everybody listens to it. Because, like we talked about earlier, when we decided we were going to go with the church camp, we didn't know what was going to happen. We just kind of blind faithed it, said we're going to do this. And, it's really strengthened, and I've told other people this, but it's really strengthened my faith watching you sort of take up the mantle on that and do it, because I don't know that anybody else really jumped up and said, I'll take this on sight unseen. I don't know what we're getting involved with exactly, who we're getting involved with necessarily, but we know the Lord's going to be in it. And
that's just that the Lord was in it, because I had no idea.
And then the first meeting, they made her secretary. Yeah, a person that's never been, not been involved with this camp ever. They're like, hey, we see something in you that we need. And on a greater scale, what I love is that, as Casey was just talking about, this woman who has had such a profound impact on his life. I don't know if you realize this, but you might have been that for some camper this week. Like when I was a little girl, I went to this camp and there was this woman named Anastasia. And the way that she just got up and played with us and encouraged us to worship. And because there was at one point, the second night, there was a giant circle of people worshiping, and Anastasia's just in the circle, out of the circle, dancing, praising. And there are going to be, certainly there is at least one kid in camp that said, hey, if she can do that and be an adult, surely I can, I can worship that same way. And the thing I will always say is that the next best thing to receiving your own salvation is watching somebody else receive theirs. And I think that also applies to the next best thing to like exercising your faith is watching other people exercise theirs.
And certainly you had people praying all week, not just for the kids at camp, not just for, the staff, for you specifically also, but, even for the people that weren't physically there helping with it. I guarantee you that you were being covered in prayer that entire time.
I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I just know when Ethan brought it up last August, and he just brought it up.
She lit up.
Think about
that
it.
Sounds like so much fun.
I prayed and I prayed and I prayed for 4 months, and I was like, God, I don't know if I could do this. Like, this is a whole week, and it's not just my week, but I'm like, I don't know if this is right for me. Oh my gosh. And he's like, you have to do it. That it's one of the times that I know for sure that I listened. And when I brought it up, I'm like, I got to do it. But I'm so glad I did. I'm so glad I did. And I can't wait for next year. There will be a next year. We actually have our next meeting in August. So
that's awesome. Yeah. I was hoping there would be a follow-up meeting, like, at least in a couple months to say, hey, how'd things go?
Ideas are already started rolling. I have a couple different people that I got to meet that have ideas for next year, and they're like, "Well, I think we should do this and this." But So it's been, and I met a lot of new friends. So
I think general consensus I heard was definitely try and make the wake up time a little later.
that maybe a nap time in between.
Yeah, but other than that, I mean, I heard no complaints from any of the campers.
What was the wake up time? Just so I know.
6 a.m.
6 to 6:30 was
You had
like,
to be at the
if
flagpole
you-
by 7:30, and I had 12 girls to get around and
Yeah.
2 showers in my cabin.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So yeah, wake up time could probably be a little bit
Yeah.
later.
Work
but-
on that, ladies. But otherwise,
we had a pudding incident our first, night, Monday night. It was pudding. Well, you had to trust. And so you had to blindfold your partner and then feed him with a mini tiny spoon, which was really hard to find, but I found the tiniest spoons you could find and try to feed him pudding while you're blindfolded.
You came up with this, right?
Oh, I did.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, it was in the eyes. One of the girls, I didn't know this, but she went to bed with clumped pudding in her hair. And she gets in the morning, she goes, I got to get in the shower. I go, you are
Yeah,
first
you
in the
do.
showers this morning.
Yeah,
I was
you
like,
do.
how did you sleep with pudding in your hair? But
Yeah,
they had, but it was all,
yeah.
it was just wonderful watching them have fun while they
Well,
had
and
faith.
Any parents that might be listening, like, like they took care of your kids. Like, don't
No,
think.
we didn't just throw
my
pudding in the
people,
hair.
Yeah, pudding. These kids are going to bed with pudding. Kids need to go to bed with pudding in their hair.
They do.
Like,
They were
It
being
is what it
kids.
is. Maybe that wouldn't be something you do at home, but
No, but
it's
our
camp.
chapel, the chapels were like you said, we were going to end at a certain time, but it just
Yeah.
it didn't matter
Yeah.
if it went over, and when it went over till late,
Yeah.
it was 11 o'clock by the time you walked back to your cabin and you did your devotionals, and you
Yeah.
had to be up at 6 a.m. the next morning. So
that sounds like a good short, by the way. It's just Ethan saying kids need to go to bed with pudding in their hair.
they do need to go to
That
bed
sounds
before
like
you
a
do
good
that.
short. We'll see.
Especially after a day of serving the Lord. Like,
Yeah.
just saying, hey, you know what, reckless abandon, I'm so tired, I'm going to bed.
And it was a trust, trust your partner because you trust God and
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
There's a lot. It wasn't just fun and games. They
Yeah.
all went with our lessons. We did.
Yeah, that's the
Jesus
cool
calms
thing.
the storm, and
about a lot of the activities they were still faith-based.
Every
even
one
though
of
they
them.
were fun.
they were all fun, but they were still faith
Yeah,
based.
yeah. And thank goodness for Anastasia for putting those together. She was the activities person. I don't think, I don't think there was an element of camp that I was like, which I of course wasn't there all day.
You should have had
but-
the food.
Yeah,
I'm
I
still
never
missing.
did get to eat any of the
I'm
camp
still
food.
missing the food. I'm like,
Yeah.
I wish I had somebody cooking my 3
Yeah.
meals a day. That was really nice.
I tell you what, Anastasia, one of the things that's probably going to be difficult is, which you've lived your life from, kids went home Wednesday at noon, right? Mm-hmm. So you've lived a couple days of quote unquote normal life, and obviously getting back into the routine of that. One of the things I always think about is, Lord, how do I hold on to the things I need to hold on to camp in my normal life now? And so we're definitely gonna be praying for you, because it sounds like you had a pretty profound
That's good.
experience.
I hope that's not a challenge for me because I really do.
Yeah, like
I don't want to forget
Yeah.
the great feelings, and I know I won't forget, but
yeah,
you have to be there to experience the joy on these kids' face when, and these weren't tears of sadness that were going on that night. I mean, some of them were tears of sadness because they were spilling everything out,
yeah,
and letting everything go. But a lot of them were tears of joy because they found God, or their friend
they
did.
experienced the power of the Holy Spirit.
That is to
Yeah.
watch somebody else experience that it's life changing, and you just can't see it on a TV screen or to experience it or somebody tell you about it. You have to go out there.
Yeah.
You have to work with those kids, and it changed my whole life. And I'm still ready to go back to camp.
The way I always describe it is, when you're in a scenario like the chapels, it's like the Holy Spirit is so thick you could cut it with a knife.
You could,
and you don't know what I'm saying until you've been there.
until you've been there.
And I think that's maybe the shameless plug of like, hey, next year volunteer for camp. We're automatically
Even if it's just one day, you don't have to go and.
Richard didn't have to come out every day, but he did.
He did,
and
I know he learned a lot. I mean,
absolutely.
I watched him.
Absolutely,
and
there
I
were
know
some
his
things
faith grew.
he messaged me like, hey, I can't believe that I experienced this or whatever, and maybe he can come and speak to those things. Maybe we can have him on, but I think from the perspective of like part of the reason we want to have this is that hopefully other people go, hey, I want to be a part of that. Just know, like next year, if you're a part of our church, we're gonna call you out because I think off the top of my head, and I'm not gonna mention anybody's name, but I think there would be people that would be so good, plugged into our camp, and it may seem, I got to dedicate that amount of time to my life but it's quick. Right.
It went by way too fast. I didn't want to leave.
And that's the good thing is when you don't want to leave a situation, that means that the situation has been profound, and so it'll come and go, and whether or not you realize it, you'll probably want to be at camp next time. You've
got time to prepare now too. Because it did come up.
I was so terrified. I didn't think it was going to go as good as it did.
Yeah.
And I was terrified. I was thinking of all the negative things that could have happened.
Yeah.
And I never once thought about all the positive.
Yeah.
And I think that's what made it so great is because none of the negative happened. And it was all positive.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, everything that I was worried about, there was no reason to worry because that didn't even happen. Because when you're there, it's not about any of those other things. It's all about God and watching these kids grow. And in spirit, and that was, and I don't know about for me because Richard had a different kind of experience as a staff because he also had a child that went to camp, and to watch it from a dad's point of view and to watch your own child grow had to be a whole different experience. And I guarantee it, they had a long talk on the way home about
guaranteed
her faith and of how she grew. So just to watch.
That's kind of cool. Maybe we can get Richard and Effie to come on.
Because they got to experience something that I didn't.
Have we ever used our fourth chair?
No.
No, we've never used our fourth chair. So maybe that's a good idea. Maybe we should consider that.
Because he had a totally different level from me because he was watching it as a staffer,
a father,
and then a father of a child that was there. And he because I watched him absorb. I mean, he got to watch Effie have fun, but he absorbed everything that she was too, because he was. I mean, and I know that they had to have a talk because I know that she got out a lot out of camp. So but just as a different perspective as a staffer, he was also a parent, so he has the whole different. I didn't get to take my kids home with me and ask them, "How was camp? What'd you do? What'd you learn?" I didn't get that. So I had to let him go and give him a hug goodbye and say, see you next year. Bring a couple friends. So, but he has the experience of having that one-on-one conversation with his daughter.
Yeah,
which
that's awesome. I never even thought of that.
It'd be great to have him on. It's such a blessing to have this platform that we're able to have you on, and we've had other guests on that are able to talk about. You're not really a guest though. You're part of our family, but to have guests on here to talk about different topics. So that'll be really cool for that because there's conversations that happen in this room that don't happen anywhere else. I mean, really. Yeah. That we get to talk about. Sometimes they're broadcast and sometimes they're not. But, I think is going to be super beneficial.
I know I made some good friends. I know Pastor Richard and Michaela and I were like the three little amigos. He actually has it written as something on our phone group. But, I mean, we have not stopped texting each other since, and it's not even all about camp. It was just I've became my relationship with others have really grown because it's hard
not to
from an adult,
not to puff you up too much, but Richard was like, "Hey, I wish I had 3 of her." That's what
he told me last week. He goes, "I need more of you." Yeah.
And those people exist. It's just whether or not they're going to answer the call to go to camp next week. And so, or next week, next time.
I wish it was next week.
You'd be there.
If you're listening to this from our church, listen. You know Anastasia. You trust Anastasia. Hopefully, listen to what she's saying because. I probably until my daughter goes to camp, I probably won't be able to ever do the full committal week. But I was there for I told Lacey, I got to leave at 5 tonight. I don't know when I'm coming home. Which those conversations happen sometimes for bad reasons. But in this case, I was like, I'm going to camp. Not in our marriage, of course, but I just mean like in marriages, sometimes that conversation happens and it's for a bad reason. But she knew exactly where I was at, what I was doing, and what it was for, and what if you're hearing what Anastasia's saying, the experience that you're nearly guaranteed to have is that you're going to grow in your relationship with Christ along the way, right? Alongside the campers, you're going to go in. There's not a person there that is so seasoned in their relationship with God that they didn't learn something.
I will say,
even Joni will testify to something this at this camp. After we've talked about, she's been part of camp herself.
1954.
Yeah, for years and years and years and years, she will tell you, I always learned something from camp.
So I met a girl. She was visiting her mother for a while, and she's from another state. She's from Missouri. And she was there with her two daughters. And at the very end, she said that I don't like people. She goes, but I love you guys. And she was crying. Her mom comes up. She goes, is she crying? She doesn't like people. She opened up in her faith that more than she ever thought she was going to.
Yeah.
And it was a beautiful thing just to watch her as an adult. It wasn't just the kids. These were adults. I mean, we were all growing in our faith. And it's not, you don't have to be 9 to 16 or to grow in your faith. I guarantee it, Joni grew and she told us her age, but I'm not going to go ahead and say her age here. But, she's up there and she was growing in her faith. And I guarantee it, she learned a lot because she actually wrote me a message after the fact. I mean, we communicated after camp. Just, I needed a little bit more Joni in me sometimes, and I needed her devotion. I was like, I need your devotional tonight because that was, I've never had to do that with a child. I mean, I've taught Sunday school class where you give them the lesson out of the Bible. I read it out of a pamphlet. It's not something like that's, it doesn't always in the half hour after church always come out.
Yeah.
But the spiritual part of her devotions were something I'm glad I got to absorb and learn from and hopefully get to use.
I was going to say, do you think that will change the way that you do Sunday morning kids ministry now?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would say so.
I learned a lot. So that's just not the kids learning, it's the adults. So
isn't that the goodness of God for him before he pours out all of these children to our church that, we're praying hoping that he does, that he's prepared you in that way, saying, hey, now you know how to have, not that you weren't having an impact on these kids' life before, but how to have more of an impact in the amount of time that you have.
And you just don't learn it from the kids. I was learning it from everybody else. Yeah. I mean, and what they do and how they, maybe proceed on something. And it was just.
And I think an important thing to mention from the staff side, it's the same with the kids. Like, you don't have to feel like real strong in your faith to become a camp. You have to be background checked. That's obviously important because you're dealing with children. You have to have a pastor sign off on the fact that you're coming to camp. And that's that's it. Those are the two most important things, is that somebody knows you, right? And that you're background checked, because we can't have people that aren't background checked around children. But other than that, one of our favorite pastors, he told this story one time about how he, his name's Jonathan Pokluda. He got invited to a lake party one time, and he was had known about Jesus and stuff, but he was running from the Lord and in this situation where he's, in college and just trying to have a good time. So he's like, oh, lake party, there's going to be girls, there's going to be this, there's going to be that, there's going to be booze. And he said, I got to the lake party and there was none of that. There were no girls. It was just a bunch of guys. There was no booze, And he said, we sat around, we talked, we played cards, and he said, I called a friend after we left this lake party, and I was like, dude, we've been doing it wrong. He said, because I had the best time of my life without all of the things that I thought.
The other distractions that you think is going to be fun. Yeah. That's not.
And so what he said was, though, is he found out later that the reason they did these lake parties was all of those guys were Christian, and they would invite one non-Christian. And he goes, well, was that me? He's like, yeah, that was you. We targeted you. And the reason I bring that up is because for a camp staff, you may come into it not very strong in your faith, because there's other people around you that are strong in their faith, like it's going to build your faith to go, oh my goodness, like I just spent time with this person, this person, this person, this person, and I can walk away from camp better than where I was when I came into it. And,
for sure.
And I think that would be cool, actually, to invite one camp staff a year that has never experienced anything like it. Just, hey, you should come. I think that'd be a
Power
cool
of the Holy
experience.
Spirit.
Yeah, however the Holy Spirit leads. But everything else you want to say? I mean, I think we've talked a lot, but I'm sure you'll remember things after.
Well, I was afraid to make the step. I was really terrified, to be honest with you. I was, for the last month and a half, I'm like, I can't believe I'm actually doing this. I've been going to the meetings. I'm looking over everything, all my, my verses and everything that I needed to do. And I was terrified.
I can
really
imagine.
Was.
Yeah.
It was nothing like that. It was so rewarding. That I invite you, you've got to go try it for yourself. Even if it's for a couple hours and you have a skill you want to share, whether that's doing dishes or just watching the kids. Because we had some visitors, staff, and they came from some churches that were just there to help.
Yeah.
For a couple hours.
Keep track of the kids.
And I'm going to tell you, I know that they got a lot out of it too.
And I guess that's a great point too. Like, you don't have to fully commit to like, hey, I'll be a cabin mom, cabin dad, which is like where you spend the entire time at camp. You go to bed, you wake up, all of that's all done at camp.
You're rubbing the tummies.
If you're not sure what to know, if you're not sure what things are going to be like, then just come come one day,
or half a day, or whatever.
Yeah, just be a day staffer if you don't think that you're ready for the rest of that. Just come and see what it's like. Come to a chapel. I think the biggest thing.
That's the
biggest thing I'm going to stress next year to our church is, if you can't be on staff at camp, come one night to a chapel.
It'll change your life.
Because you're going to experience something that you may not have ever experienced before.
And I can't wait to experience that again, because that was just to watch those children have. Because I'm kind of scared to go up to the altar sometimes on Sunday morning, even though I know everybody at church, but I'm like, okay, if I do go up there, they're going to think something's really, really wrong with me if I go up there, that I didn't share with, because I do share a lot with just the prayer team. So I don't share everything with everybody in the church, but it is nothing like that. It was, it is a beautiful thing to watch these kids grow.
Yeah.
And it changed my life, and I won't forget it.
On that point, here's what I always think about the whole, if I go up there, everybody's going to think a thing about me. I can't recall a time in my life where somebody was going up to the altar that I thought, I wonder what they're up to. And maybe that's just my personality. I don't know. There have been times when I knew exactly why they were going. And I was like, thank God they're on their way there. Or I was right behind them because I'm going to pray for them too. And maybe while I'm up there, I might get prayer for myself. Maybe some of it will rub off on me,
Sometimes you're just praying for somebody else. It might not even be about you.
Exactly.
I was praying for somebody else, and then all of a sudden, I don't know if it was, they knew, but Justin's wife came up to me and she goes, I think you need prayer. And next thing you know, I'm spilling out something that I would have never told anybody in a while. And I didn't know this lady.
Yeah,
I didn't.
Mary.
Yeah, I had no idea who she was, but she put her arm on, her arm on my shoulder, and she started praying for me. I'm like, I really needed that prayer, but I didn't know I did. I was just up there praying for somebody else, and she said, I feel like you need this. And I really did.
Yeah.
And I had, who would have thought? But
I love Mary. She has such a calm and pleasant spirit about her that it's easy to open up, just to say, hey, I guess I do need that.
I will say, to get the kids excited, we kept, which I didn't know who was coming each day. And I just kept saying, this pastor's coming, this pastor's coming. And, when it was their pastor, I know we had Pastor Dave come.
Yeah.
The kids, I thought it was going to be Tuesday night or Monday night, and I kept saying, no, Pastor Dave's going to be here. They were all, all these kids were like, oh, and then Pastor Dave wasn't there, but they loved Pastor Justin. And then when, they got excited because but you're going to hear a sermon from this and they were excited about that. It wasn't like, oh,
Yeah.
I have to hear a sermon.
Yeah.
But the sermons weren't like you would think on a Sunday sermon. They were good sermons. I mean,
Yeah.
they were.
All of the sermons were for children I'll say, for anybody.
I got so.
Yeah.
Maybe I like it on my level because I like to be on that child level, but I understood so much. I mean, yeah, it was.
What I
wonderful.
love about being a pastor at these things is I didn't talk to Justin. Justin didn't talk to my dad. I didn't talk to my dad. Justin didn't talk to me. So on and so. What I mean is we didn't communicate with each other about what we were going to be preaching on, and all of the sermons just wove within one another. And it was this idea that, we need to know who Jesus is first and foremost, that we all have this sin that needs to be taken care of, and that we were created for more than just being people of this world. Those are some of the big themes that I got out of it, that no weapon formed against you could prosper. So the devil wants to make you part of the world, but you have these tools that God has equipped you with, and the Holy Spirit's going to protect you. And they were all just woven together for this idea that, you can go forth from here knowing and loving Jesus. If you knew and loved Jesus when you came, knowing and loving Jesus stronger than what you ever have, and that the devil's certainly going to be after you, but that the Lord is going to be with you. And that's what's far more important. And I thought, well, it was great to see how the Holy Spirit just laid on our hearts different things that all, went together.
Was it that Jesus said, I'm going to paraphrase this, but that Satan wants to sift you like the wheat.
Yeah. That's what he told Peter.
I've prayed for you.
Yeah.
Like I'm praying for you.
Yeah. The most profound thing about that statement is Jesus tells Peter Satan wants to sift you like the wheat. He wants to shake you down, so to speak. And Jesus didn't say, I told him not to. Mm-hmm. Jesus said, but I prayed for you that your faith might prevail. Mm-hmm. Like, Satan's going to do what he's going to do, but it's your faith that needs to prevail. God could stop anything from happening. Mm-hmm. But if you need for it to, Peter needed to be sifted. Jesus knew that. If Peter didn't need to be sifted, he would have told the devil to take a hike, because he has authority over him, whether the devil would admit it or not. Instead, Jesus was like, but I've been praying that your faith will be strong. Yeah. And I'm sure Peter was like, why didn't you just tell him not to touch me?
Yeah.
Why didn't you just tell him, why didn't you take a sift and throw it,
It's no different than what you talked about earlier about how God's not forgotten you,
Yeah.
It's like, for whatever reason in this season, the struggles that you're facing, God has chosen not to pull that away from you completely, or whoever.
He has a plan.
Absolutely. And I think that's the thing one of the most important things to remember about every camper is you have some of them you might know because they go to your church, but you have no clue what these kids come from. You have no clue what they're going back to. But my biggest prayer, and I prayed this for every child that I prayed for, and every child in the closing, that all the days of their life they would dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Right? That they would continue to serve God when they left this camp, and that there wouldn't be a day when they would say, hey, I don't believe this anymore, or that the world was so strong in their life that it prevailed over their knowledge of Christ. And that was my prayer, and that continues to be my prayer. And if you're listening, that should be your prayer for the campers. One of the great things is that staff has a list of all the kids. And I would hope that staff would continue to say, hey, this year, I'm going to continue to pray for Bobby and Joey, and because I don't know what they went back to, or maybe I know exactly what they went back to, so they're at the top of my prayer list for this year, because there's something about have you ever thought about this? For some people, nobody ever talks to Jesus about them. Mm-hmm. Like, no one's name has ever been uttered. So there are some people that their name has never been uttered in a prayer on behalf of another person. We have a list of kids that we can now, maybe nobody's ever prayed for them, nobody's ever interceded for them, that now you can go, hey, I know where this person's coming from, I know what they're going back to, and I'm going to be praying this year, and hopefully we get to see them back next year. Mm-hmm. I think that's the hope, is that we retain all of the kids that we can. Obviously, if you're a senior, or if you were a coming in senior next year, you don't get to come back to camp. But
Well, see, they do invite you to come back to help, and I do
Yeah.
believe we have one coming back.
yeah, and that's
And-
great.
I
Come
mean,
back and be a helper.
I didn't realize how old he was, but it was the last day, and everybody was getting ready to leave. I said, "You need to come back. When you're old enough, you need to be staff." I watched you change.
Yeah.
I watched you work with these kids, and he goes, and they go, "Well, he'll be back next year." And I go, "Oh."
Yeah.
He goes, "Well, I'm
Yeah.
aging out." So I'm like, "Oh," because
Yeah.
you just seen it in him. You just seen the good vibes that he shared, and he would be a great work with the kids. So I mean, that's.
I think one last important thing to note is that is the cool thing about church camp is that since you have all these people of all ages, what they might tell camp grandma might be different than what they. And I like that terminology that you guys came up with. Camp sister is a girl who's closer to your age than camp grandma that you might tell something different to than what you would tell.
And I
camp
didn't
grandma.
know until
And-
we were talking about it. She goes, "Well, I have to pray for this specific child," and I go, "I didn't know that." And she goes, "Well, she came up to me and told me her problem, and I had no idea." And she was in my cabin, but she didn't tell grandma or cabin
you,
mom,
yeah.
but she told grandma or the cabin sister. So
Yeah,
they
that's
had
the
it
cool
was.
thing.
And she was getting prayed for. So just because they might not be comfortable with the older crowd doesn't mean that the younger one, the kids are still sharing.
Yeah. See, and I feel like I'd be the reverse. I would want to tell somebody like a grandma type figure, because that's the relationship I have with my own grandma. I've told
Yeah.
my grandma stuff I wouldn't tell my parents.
Your grandma's cookies.
Yeah.
I got to taste
Yeah,
her grandma's
yeah.
cookies.
Yeah, she makes, and that's I mean,
as big as my
if
plate.
anything, come out and eat lunch with the kids because the lunch is going to be delicious.
The food was wonderful.
Yeah, the staff that we have for the kitchen has worked in the kitchen for such a long time. They know exactly what they're doing.
I kind of knew it was going to be good because I went to the meetings, and at the meetings we eat a lot
Yeah.
of food, and so I kind of had an idea that okay, these ladies can cook, but I didn't realize these ladies can cook.
Yeah, and
And they were full, complete
can cook
meals.
for multiple people. That's the beauty of it is that you didn't run out of food.
No, we had one camper, and they were from our church. She goes, "I don't eat burgers," and I go, "Well, that's what's on the menu." And she goes, "I'm bringing a bag of chips." I said, "Okay," and she ate 2 of them. And I told her, she goes, "I need to know what's in these burgers," but she ate 2 of them. She goes, "I don't eat hamburgers, but these are the best hamburgers ever." The food was wonderful.
Yeah,
So
awesome.
even if you just come out and help the kitchen staff, because
Yeah.
they work hard.
Yeah. Anything else on your heart that you want to share?
Don't be afraid to come and help.
Yeah.
Because the kids needs us.
Absolutely. Anything on your heart, Casey?
It's clear.
You think you'll help next? I mean, you don't have to be a cabin, but you think you'll be there next year?
Yeah,
You do know the trails, and we could use somebody taking kids on hikes. For somebody who knows the trails.
I really wanted to be able to do that this year, and it's just because of the way my work schedule is. It's weird at the moment, but with some pre-planning,
Yeah.
that I would have this, But yes, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Next year, I hope to be a bigger part of it as well. At least to be there for longer periods of time. With having a 1-year-old at that time, it might be a little bit difficult. But I do hope to come back and be a bigger part. With a little bit more planning, I think praise and worship could grow even bigger. And but yeah,
Perfect.
One thing we know for sure is next year we're going to need more staff. We can't stress that enough because we're going to have more kids. There's no way
There's going to be tons more kids.
There's no way we only have 26 kids again. So because we know that we didn't even advertise it. We never
Not
put
at
it
all.
on Facebook. We never, none of these churches reached out to anybody and said, it was just all, kids from our church or grandkids, nieces, nephews of people from the churches that were involved. And there was no, so next year it will certainly be bigger. And
I think go ahead.
but what we really hope is to try and retain that ratio of campers to staff. So
that helps
if
a lot
you
because
can help.
they're comfortable enough to talk to you,
Yeah.
and they don't feel like they're just,
Yeah.
You got 17 kids, and with one person, it wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't like that, and everybody clicked together and helped each other.
And if you're willing to help, they'll find a place for you to help. I mean,
yeah.
that's the great thing. So
I think the last thing I would say is, this podcast is about camp, but after you listen to this podcast, we mentioned it a little bit, but pray about how you see things moving in the church, even, because he's the same Holy Spirit that was at camp, filling those children that is in the church, that's in us. So you don't have to wait a full year to see a move of the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
You can see it tomorrow.
Yeah.
We're recording this on a Saturday. You can see it tomorrow if you want, if you're open to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's been one of my prayers coming out of camp, is, Lord, this, why... And I asked that question at the beginning, why isn't this every Sunday? Now I understand not every Sunday is probably going to be like that, but why do you have to go to camp to experience, why once a year do you have to go to a camp to experience the Holy Spirit like this? Mm-hmm. Why can't that be a regular part of service? And so one of my prayers is just that if for some reason we're putting restrictions on the Lord, that we say, hey, we're hands off when whatever you want to do, Lord. Mm-hmm. And I think Anastasia would say the same thing. Hey, I come, because I don't think, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you come back from camp going, I can't wait to get back to normal church.
No,
right?
Not at all.
You're like, I hope I can attend. I want camp to come every Sunday.
I do. I didn't want to leave.
Yeah, absolutely.
I needed a nap. Don't get me wrong, but I didn't want to leave.
Yeah. Well, I think that pretty much cuts it. If you want to be a part of camp, definitely reach out to Anastasia if you're one of our church members. And because she's just openly said she'll be there next year. And so I know we like to do sometimes we do committees and different things for that, but we'd love to see a bigger response from our church next year at the number of staff. The couple that we had really held it down for us this year, thankfully, but we're going to need more of this church to be involved. And so shamelessly, I'll beg you, but it won't be for nothing. I can guarantee you that, because you're going to benefit just as much from being a volunteer as the campers do. So
if not more.
If not more.
If not more.
If not more.
I was a camper as a kid, and I've never experienced what I experienced until...
That's good to hear.
It took me 43 years, but, it amazed me, because I really didn't know that whole thing truly exists. You think about it, you pray about it, but that was perfect.
And again, it all came from this idea that we felt like before we ever even had a place, a time, a date, a number of people to say we'll volunteer, that the Lord said we want you to start moving on this, and we did, and we answered that call, and thankfully this is the outcome. And hopefully, if you're a parent listening to this, that your kids have wonderful things to say about camp. And I would encourage parents to talk to your kids about what happened at camp. Hopefully they'll open up to you. Hopefully they'll say, hey, I had a good time, and Anastasia was great, and I'm sure they're saying that. So, with that being said, as always, we love you guys, and we'll see you on the next one.
See ya.
See ya.